Okay, folks, we'll get started now. Just to let you know that this webinar will be recorded for everyone, and for those that miss it, they can catch up. We'll post it on the Recovery for All website. So welcome to the final strategy session for recovery for all. I'm thrilled to welcome you all here today. I'm joined by my friend Zane Belgi from Northweather. Zane and I are going to go through, just a bit of a retrospective on the campaign. We'll create opportunities for you to ask questions, and we've got a couple of poll questions for you to help out on with a couple of things. But we are going to talk a bit about where we got to with the campaign. And then we're also going to let you know a little bit about the strategy and an upcoming campaign that we're looking at heading into the election. So I'll do a brief introduction. Zane will go over what you helped us accomplish, or what you accomplished. We'll talk about the new campaign and tell you a bit about what we are planning, and then we'll have an opportunity to hear from all of you. Now, Zane, if you want to flip to the next slide there, just a couple of quick items on housekeeping. So everyone, just everyone is muted, but please feel free to use the chat to offer suggestions, comments, ideas, and to talk to your peers on the call. We do, with Zoom, we're able to sort of take the save the chat so we can see comments and questions that are through there. If you have a question that you want to submit to us, that would be great if you could do it through the Q&A panel. That just helps me keep track of all of the questions, because if I'm not really that tech savvy. I'm not a teenager like Zane. I don't get this tech that much, so it takes me forever. And I'm not very good at multitasking with these things. So if you could put things into the Q&A, that would be terrific. We'll also be running a few polls during the webinar to get your advice. So just before I turn it over, Zane, just wanted to start by saying thank you to everyone and all your hard work and support in support of Recovery for All. We have accomplished an awful lot in less than a year. I was just chatting with Zane. We launched Recovery for All May, I think 26th.
26th, that's correct, Tim. Yeah.
Not quite a year ago, and have accomplished an awful lot, as Zane will go through in just a sec. So with that, I will pass the mic over to Zane and let him go through some of what we've accomplished and what's lying ahead.
Wonderful. Thanks, Tim, and thank you everyone for making time out of your Friday, for being here, for sitting through this, for being, this is the least of it. What I want to say is for being so engaged leading up to this. I cannot think of a more poignant way of saying this, that what we have been able to achieve would not be possible without your participation over the course of the last year. Like, it would have been impossible to get where we have gotten. Are we at the finish line yet? No, not exactly. But have we made significant progress? You betcha. And so I wanted to spend time today in two distinct buckets. Firstly, to say, hey, here's all the cool stuff we were able to do because of you. And B, say, with that momentum that we've now been able to unearth, with that community, if I can call it that we've now been able to form with you and 23,000 other folks that have signed up, that have created time in their lives to make this part of what they care about and how they want to advocate. How do we create something new? How do we create something lasting, something that is speaking to the moment, something that speaks to our upcoming election? And that's where we want to talk about our new campaign, which I'll tease you right now, but I hope we get some chance to hear your feedback on it as well. But let me start with the elements of what you helped accomplish. And I usually, if you've seen me present, I have a quote by a former US president about, if you want to help do something, you got to show me the parade of people that agree with what I already have kind of greenlit, and then show me there's momentum. But I wanted to show you this quote today because I think it's so fitting based on where we are right now, which is every important change in our society for the good at least, has taken place because of popular pressure, pressure from below, pressure from great mass of people. And at the end of the day, what we've been able to do, as this author, Edward Abbey, says, is indicate to our decision makers what's important to us, what we care about, and B, ensure that they understand that we're going nowhere, that our voice on this is not just limited to sending a single letter or to sitting on our hands after doing one action, but a sustained moment of being involved, being engaged, and being mobilized. And that pressure, as Tim has said in our previous webinars, has led to significant things. Our biggest interim success up until this budget was that commitment that our federal counterparts had mentioned to us, saying, hey, it was advocacy that got us this commitment to eliminating chronic homelessness. And that commitment then ushered or opened the door to our pressure leading up to budget, which got us a significant tranche of investment in very significant programs. So, as much as this is all about trying to ensure that politicians see a parade of people supporting what they already want to do or feel convinced that they need to do, it's also noting that every important change in our society, the big audacious things like we're trying to do, starts with us. It starts with you moving these things along. So let me talk about tactically what we've done. We started about a year ago, May 26th of 2020. We were all getting used to what pandemic life was, and some of us are still calibrating and struggling absolutely in terms of what that was. But just around that time, around this time last year, we got started. And one of the biggest things with advocacy campaigns is that there's a failure to launch. Let me be very clear that a lot of advocacy campaigns start, they do okay, and then they're a thud. Mainly because there isn't sustained momentum, mainly because there isn't a group of people that are ready to do more than one thing, more than one sign up. It kind of falters. And what you have done for us was you not only started out with a bang, but you allowed us to keep that momentum growing. We started on that first day with 1,000 supporters off the bat in the door, which was super exciting. We got trending across the country. We had people, organizations, media entities, institutions wanting to cover us from that first day. And it wasn't because we spent a ton of money on advertising to get that message out on that first day. What it was, is we look back, we know that the core asset to this campaign was you. You were there from the get-go. And whether you joined 3 weeks in or 2 months in after that, the fact is that energy from day one was there, which kind of set our inflection point. So that first launch day and launch week really set our inflection for the rest of the campaign. And then you grew the movement. Between year to year, over 24,000 of you joined the campaign, taking significant actions, calling your members of parliament, sending letters, tweeting, engaging one another, bringing each other into the fold, joining webinars and conversations like this, giving us and donating to us your ideas as to what we should do and what we should consider, helping us push policy on the federal level, bringing in friends and family. You did everything from joining us digitally to donning your Housing for All masks. More than 100 of you graduated an Institute for Change Leaders 8-week course to help organize even better. So not only saying, I'm ready to support this campaign, but I want to learn how to do it. Through our partners at Ryerson University and the Institute for Change Leaders, over 100 of you joined this course for 8 weeks, got the nitty gritty training of what power is, how to use power, how to leverage it in your community, which is not just a skill for this campaign, but I think is a skill, frankly, for future campaigns, and a life skill and a life's work around being able to advocate for things you care about. You were there with your energy, not just from day one, but you allowed us to grow it. And then we had our organizing partners, over 120 of you joined in to our campaign. So whether you're here today on the call as an individual who's committed, deeply passionate, we say thank you. Whether you're here today as a bit of both, someone who runs an organization or works at an organization that partnered with us and are committed, we want to thank you too, because it wasn't just the everyday people, it was the credibility of the institutions, the networks, the organizations all across this country that made this thing very real. That merger of our everyday voices and our everyday hands alongside these key network players in this campaign really made this possible and credible across the country for our decision makers to take very seriously. That this wasn't just a a rabble-rousing group of a dozen people. In fact, this was a movement that's really just getting started. And just getting started is the headline here that I'll leave you with as we tease to that next section. We ran 37 unique letter writing campaigns and several sub campaigns in between. Send a letter to do X, Y, and Z, support healthcare workers. Every time we saw a moment, you responded to that moment. Every time we saw a moment that the government wanted to perhaps do something, but they needed a bit of pressure, you stood up and you said, what can we do to help? You responded to our calls. Tim Richter is probably a name that's burnt in your memory if you've checked your email box in the last year. It's because you responded to our calls to say, hey, we think there's a little bit of opportunity here. Can you help us out? Every time we asked, you responded, and you sent over 750,000 letters, which I kid you not, is not just an amazing raw total, but I have to be candid with you, is one of the core reasons that the government heard. Was they saw the number come in, ding, ding, ding. They knew that this wasn't just a group of people in the back of in a basement somewhere sending out emails. This was Canadians who said, I'm willing to give my time to this. I'm willing to say I care about this issue. I'm willing to say I care deeply about something. So every time we made the call, you responded and you answered, and it was tremendous to see that sort of momentum and that sort of response every time. Our campaign wasn't just getting you to say something, it was also trying to reach Canadians overall. So we knew that we couldn't get every single Canadian to be a supporter immediately. That was never going to happen. But could we get the conversation of a recovery for all, of ending homelessness in this country, of the possibility into the zeitgeist? And you helped us do that too. With very limited advertising, you helped us get over 1.5 million, 1.6 million views on our videos over the course of the last year on all of our platforms. You allowed Canadians who had never heard of our campaign to hear about it. You allowed these stories, the one here of Teresa, you allowed this webinar video or our launch video to get seen by literally hundreds of thousands and in a cumulatively like 1 million plus people. And overall, with your efforts, with the dollars that you contributed back to the campaign, with the energy you contributed through your voice and time, we reached nearly 4 million Canadians on this campaign. 4 million people heard about us, they touched us, and they saw what we were up to, and we were able to kind of use that energy, that momentum that you created to be able to reach a very significant swath of the country, a very wide, large country, but to reach a very significant swath of Canadians. What did that allow us to do? Well, a couple of things. It allowed us to take our 6-point plan, which you've heard about probably ad nauseum, and allowed to push that to government. Why? Because it wasn't just Tim and I pushing it from our respective basements, right? Saying, hey, government, you got to do this, right? And I'm pretty sure Tim and I are in our respective basements right now. But it wasn't just Tim and I. What we had was 24,000 of you. What we had was now an accessible universe of several 100,000, even above and beyond that. So what was once, something that government may see as a niche thing for a niche call, no longer, because we had real people, all of you, pushing this cause. And then you pushed our report, which said we'd save money by ending and eliminating homelessness in this country versus managing it. You helped us push the fact that, hey, not only are we 24,000 people here, we actually speak for a massive majority, because more than 70% of us want to urgently end homelessness, and more than 80% of us want to build affordable housing. So you showcased our decision makers that by acting on this file, on this issue, it wasn't just 24,000 people across the country. In fact, it was 24,000 people representative of the majority opinion by far, right? And in our ever divided political world, which we can get into as a treatise at some point, Tim and I have not seen things that have 70 and 80% support. So you ultimately were the reflection, the proxy to showcase to our decision makers that if you do this, it's supported by the majority of people in this country, the vast majority of people in this country. You also helped us unearth another very interesting and heartening stat that 36% of our fellow Canadians have been homeless themselves or know someone who has been at the same time. Also showcasing to government that this is not an isolated problem. This is not just a nice to have. This is something that affects a lot of us. This is scale. This is large stuff that isn't isn't niche, isn't cosmetic. It's real and it's now. And that's where we kind of ended up to some numbers that drove the campaign. And at that point, I'll kind of turn it over to Tim to walk us through a few of these numbers that drove the campaign, and then some of the numbers you helped us achieve, because I think those are even more impressive on the back end. Oh, you're on mute there, Tim.
Why don't we put all of those up there, Zane?
Absolutely.
Just go them. You know, this is, you know, Zane has talked about the 6-point plan. Again, that is actually unique in and of itself, and it's one of the first times that anybody's attempted to calculate how much housing would be required to end homelessness, and using a whole fresh data set, which was exciting. You know, 24,000 or more folks have joined the campaign, which, you know, in the grand scheme of these campaigns is a huge amount, and certainly in the housing sector, it's the biggest number of people joining a campaign that I have seen since the Alliance started in 2012. 750,000 letters is actually a stunning amount of email. You know, to give you a sense, a letter writing campaign that ran for about 6 months, focused on pushing the government to the right to housing, got only a few thousand letters. Other campaigns that I've seen, again, only a few thousand letters. To get 750,000 letters is really something else. But that speaks a lot to the power of this collective voice, right? And the power of what all of you together are doing. You know, we saw a huge amount of support among Canadians for solving homelessness urgently and for investing in affordable housing. And when you look at the poll numbers, you look at the number of people who have experienced homelessness, the number of people willing to engage in our campaign, and frankly, we had to do it with very, very little money. The fact that this many people joined without you know, without a Facebook-like advertising budget is actually pretty impressive. And in many ways, what we've done in the campaign is a warm-up for what's coming next, and gives us, and it tells us, aside from what we've been able to accomplish, it tells us that there is a huge, reachable population, group of people who care about housing, who care about ending homelessness, a huge number of Canadians, and a lot of people willing to jump on board and take some action, which is critically important, because if you look at the environment that we're operating in, we have here, there's over 6,000 registered lobbyists in Ottawa. Like, there's over 6,000 of them. This whole campaign is represented by like 2 of those 6,000, right? And the big difference between, and the competitive advantage the housing sector and the homelessness sector have here over those, most of those other 6,000 lobbyists, most of the others are corporate lobbyists, or they're full-time lobbyists, so lobbyist consultants. What we have that they don't, is voters. And that is our secret weapon. That's all of you. And if we can mobilize this huge group of people toward the objective of ending homelessness, then we can have get the result. And what you see with just 24,000 people out of a reachable population that is at least 36% of the Canadian population, we were able to get some fairly significant results. And Zane, if you want to flip to the next slide.
Absolutely.
You can throw up all the numbers. So one of the biggest outcomes of this campaign was the commitment to eliminating chronic homelessness. And that is the first time any Canadian government has committed to ending any form of homelessness. And you know that people have been trying for decades to get there. So that is a massive step. But there was also, just in the last year, over $6 billion either added or brought forward. About $1.3 billion was brought forward from future years to be put into more housing through existing national housing strategy programs. But between 5 and 6 billion in new money, which is really, really impressive. I mean, it's not certainly enough to meet the scale of the crisis yet, and it certainly wasn't everything we're asked for, but it is I think a really, really important step forward. There's obvious missings, like the biggest one that we talked about and you saw our analysis was the lack of an urban, rural, northern Indigenous housing strategy. But again, that's why we have to continue, because we don't get everything we want, and until we get everything we want, we got to keep pushing. So coming out of this campaign, we have proven that a small group or a group of motivated citizens can move public policy and can move money. We've tested a lot of the key strategies that would be, we've tested what'll work in moving the government, and we've learned a lot about what'll work in moving the government, and we've been successful. And now, we're going to take the next step. And what Zane's going to describe in a minute is what I think is going to be the largest ever housing sector campaign ever attempted in this country. And we're hoping to bring together not 24,000, but hundreds of thousands of Canadians and take advantage of the fact that they'll have an election in the near future. And we want to make sure that in that election, with this next campaign, parties across the House of Commons are going to have housing and homelessness and ending homelessness on their platforms, or else they may lose, right? Or conversely, they know they need to have housing on there to win. But that's what Zane's going to talk about next. I'll hand it back to Zane.
Thanks, Tim. And that's a great segue, because this new campaign kind of brings in this new paradigm, right? We've stress tested tactics. We now know there's an election at some date going forward. No one exactly knows when, but we also know that we have this momentum. We've shown possibility. And so our new campaign objective is to ensure that housing is on the top of the mind of every political party at the upcoming federal election. As Tim just mentioned, you need it to win. You can't have it. You can't miss out on it. And we also want to be a little bit more assertive with how we frame it. Policy helped create housing need and homelessness. Politics and our involvement in politics can help reverse it, right? So this is really a call for signaling that, hey, listen, if you want to be successful in this election, there's a bunch of people here that care about housing need and homelessness as core issues. You need to respond to that, political parties. And also the call to us as everyday Canadians is that the way we actually do this, the way we extend our work on recovery for all to ultimately reverse the policies that created homelessness, we need to get political. Now, we're going to be nonpartisan. That's our core, right? And I'll be very clear about that, right? We're not here to be a front for any one of the political parties, not at all. In fact, our core is, regardless of where you are in the political spectrum, regardless of political party, this is an issue you should care about. This is an issue you need to have on your agenda. But to do that, we're going to get involved in politics. And when I say that I mean we're going to get involved in political organizing. The work that you see a political campaign doing, when they go out on the doors or when they're installing lawn signs, or they've got a website with videos that happen every 10 days during a campaign period, that's going to be us. That's going to be what we're trying to do. Model their energy and their organization with that same level of energy and organization. And our goal is simple but audacious. The largest nonprofit housing sector campaign ever built. We have a unique partnerships for unique reach. We're partnering with other additional organizations, Co-op Housing Federation, the Canadian Housing Renewal Association, the Canadian Lived Experience Leadership Network, to bring together a coalition of partners. And then the hope is expand that out with other endorsing partners and literally tens of thousands of supporters, everyday Canadians who would put up their hand and say, yep, I want to contribute my time. I want to contribute my voice. I want to contribute my vote to housing in this next election. So we've got these unique partnerships organizationally that will allow us to build across the country like Recovery for All just couldn't, but this is the expansion pack to it, which now gives us that real ability to go across the country. It also means we're going to hit 70 swing ridings. These are ridings that we know that the election is going to be fought on. This is the turf that our political parties in this country are going to focus their energies. They know that in order for them to win, they got to play there. Well, if they got to play there, we got to be there. And so what we're going to do is target these areas outside of the greater GTA in that area, and including some parts of southern Ontario as well. Looking at the lower mainland of British Columbia, looking at the ring outside of Montreal. This is where the election is largely going to be fought. Now, you're sitting there and saying, I'm not in any of those areas, do not worry, because this campaign will meet digital with the ability to organize online as meaningfully with the grassroots, which is on the doors, lawn signs, leaflets. So we're going to ensure that regardless of where you are in this country, there's an opportunity to not just lend us your voice and not just commit your vote to housing, but utilize your time if you are so interested, but with a key geographic focus on these areas that we know that the election is going to be fought and won on.
Yeah, and I want to just highlight that point, because a number of folks have spoken up in the Q&A and in the chat just about how, we're in Northern Ontario. How do we make sure that, people are listening to our needs up here as well? One of the things I will be able to do in this campaign, I hope, is provide the organizers in those communities with the resources to organize and support you with the digital material and everything you'd need to do to run your own campaign. And when we focus on those 70 swing ridings as a priority for the campaign, it really means that we're going to put some extra effort to making sure that we've got organizers and people on the ground in those ridings or those regions, and we have to prioritize a limited advertising budget to those areas. However, it is important that northern, remote, rural, small communities around the country are also included, and people have the opportunity to engage and campaign in their communities, and we'll certainly be able to provide you some support in doing that.
That's a great point, Tim. Our strategy is four-pronged. First, we want to showcase that our case is strong. Secondly, we want to grow a sizable national coalition. Thirdly, we're going to do something called Pledge to Vote Housing. On this campaign, the voting, the pledge is going to be the biggest action, and then we're going to mobilize in communities that this election will be fought. Let me move into the brand and kind of preview a bit for the first time what this campaign might look like in terms of its colors, its name, its feel and look. We wanted a brand that was simple and values-based. What I mean by that was something that was so easy to understand that even if you just saw the name, you got it. It made sense. It resonated with you. It was also bold, right? It was something that was bold in its aesthetic, in its colors. It was action-oriented. It was kind of pushing that forward, and it was vibrant, right? We want to really strike a tone of optimism, of hope, and of empowerment, right? This is not a campaign to say, oh, boo-hoo, look at us here. No, this is a campaign of saying, there is a movement in this country of strong, committed, organized folks, and they're ready to stand up for what they want. Whether it's themselves that have had lived experience with core housing need or homelessness, or they know someone in their life, or they feel like this is critical to what it takes to have a country that is functioning and working, that coalition is here and that coalition is ready. So this had to be kind of our conditions. So what do we call in the campaign? Well, quite simply, vote housing. It's going to be bold. It's going to be vibrant. The X marks the ballot that you would see when you're constructing your vote, and that little house in between indicates the housing as well that some might see. So very simply, vote housing and votehousing.ca is where you'll find this. The pink and the purple, not owned by any political party. Vibrant, bold, inclusive. We wanted colors that stick out, that are not jarring, but that catch your attention. That let's just be clear, political campaigns would not use, but we don't have to shy away from being bold, being vibrant, tell a story that says we're here. We're also going to be doing this campaign in Quebec, so bilingual throughout. And here's what some of the campaign could look like, right? So if we ever introduce our t-shirts or lawn signs, you could see that this is a campaign that's not light on its sense of, or muted, I should say, in its sense. We really want to strike an empowering, hopeful tone, but also with our colors, plant a flag, say we're here, right? There is an element of saying, we had a great experiment that generated unbelievable outcomes with Recovery for All. We feel like Vote Housing could be a 10x version of that. That is here to stay, that kind of grows this coalition, grows this community, and indicates to the broader world and to our candidates and political parties, you got to pay attention. That this coalition is here, it's bold, it's outspoken, it cares for what it wants, and it's not shying away from that bold sense of action. Let me tell you a little bit more about the campaign, and then we can take some questions. We're looking at this campaign in 3 phases, and we currently find ourselves right now in phase 1. Now, phase 1 involves 2 basic things. First thing that we're going to do in phase 1 is we're going to take the Recovery for All campaign that you've all helped make so tremendously strong, and we're going to kind of have a natural end to it in some way, shape, or form. You know, we'll kind of have that what we call sunset. While we do that, we're going to actually develop this Vote Housing campaign, which we're in the works doing right now. New website, some new introductory videos, get everything, what we call our campaign in the can, all set up. Simultaneously to doing that in that phase 1, we're also going to ask folks to say, okay, we're building the digital assets of the campaign. We should also build some of the field assets. What are the field assets? Well, those are people. Those are people who are willing to say, you know what, I think I have some time to contribute to this. How do I get involved? And we're going to be introducing real, high-skilled volunteer campaign roles and volunteer roles, both digitally, but also in community offline for you to contribute as well. So we're going to introduce that. That's our plan for phase 1. Sometime in June, we're going to launch our campaign, but prior to that, in the next month or so, we get all that digital stuff ready and good to go. What's phase 2? Well, phase 2 is a phase we kind of have some control over, but we really don't know. And what I mean by that is it's the phase in between us actually going into an election. That's phase 3. Phase 3 is when we're in the election, we know what we're doing because it's time bound. It's between 36 and 50 some days. We know what we can do. We know how we can execute it. There's a template for us to do it. There's a deadline for us to do it. That in between period is a flex, right? So if our election, let's say, if it's next month, we almost skip phase 2, not happening. If it's in the fall, it might be a protracted phase 2 where we're trying to continuing to build resources, try different things, keep experimenting, bringing more Canadians in, getting really ready and set up for that election period where we know we can bring way more people in, try to make housing a issue on the national stage beyond just our campaign. But that phase 2 is that flex period, but with some very discrete goals. Number 1, ensuring that housing is on that agenda, growing our team and coalition, and reaching out to more people than ever before, and continue to show that strength. So as political parties start dabbling with their platforms, et cetera, we want to be there in community, digitally, indicating, hey, look at this. You see this big, bold, vibrant thing? There's a group of people behind it, and it's growing, and it's growing. And indicating that to our elected officials and candidates is going to be super important. And that third phase, that's the election. That's that discrete, 36 to 50 some day period where we head into an election and we kind of get louder and expand our thinking even more. What else does this campaign introduce? Well, new roles. Unlike Recovery for All, which you were able to help us with, sending letters, calling MPs, we're now going to have discrete organizing roles across the country. We've got something called poll captains. These are regional organizers in not just the 70 areas, but where you live. If you want to volunteer, if you want to go and door knock, we'll provide you the training and the skills to recruit volunteers, to give you the collateral to be able to do so, to go out and door knock, help install lawn signs as much as possible, help with the on-the-ground activity in your community. We need leaders. We need people who are committed and ready to organize. We're passionate about this. We will respect your time. We'll respect your availability, whatever it may be. But we know we need people in volunteer positions to help us with that. We also need people to help volunteer manage, right? People to help say, what's the interest level? How do we get folks in? So we're looking for a couple of volunteer managers at that skill set. And then finally, if you're wanting to organize at a higher skill set level, we're going to need digital organizers, people to help us do a myriad of tasks online. As simple as, I got a couple hours a week. I'm willing to call friends and family, tell them what I'm up to, post on social media. Awesome, love it. All the way to, hey, I can organize events online. I can bring a group of people. I could be your key organizer for events and digital events on Zoom, on webinar platforms. I can do DIY hosted town halls. What do you need from me? So we got a range of things we can use you for, but we'd love to get to know you. We'd love to kind of figure out what you're interested in. So new opportunities, new roles, capacity building, right? The prerequisites here are pretty much, are you interested? and are you able to contribute, and are you passionate enough? If you are, we can give you the training in these roles to help you through it, to get you through the tasks and the activities that are needed. And we'll have a campaign infrastructure of myself and Tim and others from our partner organizations that will help you through this work. So you're not going to be left alone. You're going to be part of a team. You're going to be contributing to a team to help us organize and help us make this a real reality. Final two things, and I'll stop talking. I know I talk a lot, so I'll get through these last two things, and then I'll open it up for some questions. National scope. All I wanted to say on this is, despite the fact that there's 70 swing ridings, right? Don't feel like if you're somewhere else in this country, that your voice and your vote and your time can't be leveraged and utilized. We'll really be able to use it regardless of where you are. And the final thing I'll say is, we're going to start this with the
I think
join.
Oh, you froze
you
for a sec. You froze for a sec. You're there, I think.
Am I back? Okay, perfect. Yeah, I just got a note that said my internet's unstable, so I apologize, folks. If you can hear me now, Tim, can you just give me a thumbs up and I'll keep going? Perfect. So it's my last slide anyways. We'll start with a pledge, which means on our webpage, the first thing we're going to ask anyone to do is say, in this election, will you pledge to vote housing? And that's a really powerful tool, because what that allows us to do is have not just a sign up online. It's a nuanced difference, but I need to make the point. But a group of people who've said, whenever this election is, whether it's this year, next year, whenever, I'm going to pledge to vote housing. And what that allows us to do, it allows us to obviously remind folks when they sign up to our campaign, hey, you pledged to vote housing. Here's what that means. You can, put up this sign. You can donate here. You can volunteer here. Excellent. But what that also allows us to do in a nonpartisan fashion is tell the political parties, oh, by the way, you really care about this area in Ontario, really care about this area in BC. Do you know there's X thousands of people who've pledged to vote housing in that area? Yeah, they're quite literally going to use housing as the indicator, one of the chief indicators of how they vote this election. So if you want to win, you got to play. You got to play in housing. And the power that allows us to do as a movement, with your efforts as we grow that coalition at the doors, online, through Zoom parties, that hard work, that logistical work, and then get more and more people saying, yep, I'm pledging, I'm pledging, I'm pledging. It allows us to build a coalition of Canadians that are going to pledge to vote housing that makes us undeniable. That makes us impossible to ignore. And if we are impossible to ignore, our issues are impossible to ignore. I'll say that again. If we are impossible to ignore because we're bold and we're vibrant and we're outspoken, our issues are impossible to ignore. And that's the place we want to be. So that's where we start with this pledge to build and have us donate our time and energies to kind of expanding that coalition one by one in our neighborhoods to make what we care about undeniable, so that regardless of which political party comes into office, that they know that not only do they need to commit to something in their platform related to housing and solving the issues we care about around homelessness, but that they better act on it, because this coalition is strong and they'll hold them accountable. So that's what I wanted to kind of add there. I will definitely take some questions with the remaining time. I'm going to start a poll thereafter to see if folks are interested, but I'll also leave you with my email address. If there's anything you want to reach out about, have any questions about the campaign, interested in volunteering specifically, let me know. I'm all ears, happy to chat with anyone anytime as we spend the next 6 weeks or so kind of getting this campaign set up for start. And then we launch this thing to our next destination. So Tim, I'll stop it there, see if there's any Q&A, and then maybe I'll at a point very soon right now, kind of launch that poll question as well.
There's a whole bunch of, there's a number of questions here, but there's a few points that I wanted to highlight just to sort of wrap up what Zane was saying. So a few things. This will be the largest campaign that the housing sector has ever attempted to mount. Right, so it's huge and it's ambitious. The only way it works is people power, right? The only way it works. So a national campaign run by one of the mainstream political parties, they cost millions, like millions of dollars. Even a provincial campaign, Zane, I don't know if you know how much like a provincial election campaign is. It's usually $1 million or $2 million, just province-wide.
Minimum. Oh yeah, like I'll give you an example. Provincially here, it's about 3.5 to 4 in that range.
Yeah. So we're pulling this together on a budget of $280,000, just to be open about what it is. And the party, the organizations that have come together, the Alliance, CHRA, Co-op Housing Federation of Canada, and the Lived Experience Leadership Network, as well as a coalition that we're speaking to in Quebec, those organizations are contributing kind of the base budget, but that is the base, right? And you'll see, we'll talk at some point, maybe not today, but about the org chart that we've put together.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there are, in order to run a national campaign, there are dozens of really vital roles. There's probably somewhere between 50 and 100 roles that we will have to fill, at least that many, over the next few weeks and next couple of months as we get organized. And so what I'll put to you is, as individuals, or if you're part of an organization, I know that some of you are, here's what we desperately need. One, we need people to sign up. At the end of the day, our success or failure really relies on our ability to have people signing this full pledge. 24,000 of you signed up to Recovery for All. We need that number to get substantially bigger, and all 24,000 plus signed a vote pledge. And we'll engage you the same way that we have through the campaign. So I'm afraid that you're still not, your inboxes are still going to be plagued by me. I apologize in advance for that, but maybe we'll throw in some others just to, to spice things up a bit for you. The other thing is, if you are an organization and you have staff members that could be seconded for a period of time, part-time, full-time, anytime between now and the end of the election campaign, that would be a huge support. The biggest, our biggest need for volunteers are going to be things like communication. So a lot of this is content-led, so there's got to be a lot of digital communication, email, a lot of those things, but also in the field organizing, everything from helping organize the organizing to, poll captains, riding captains, people willing to organize parties. So, things like people that experience with events, people that experience in logistics, people who have prior experience in organizing. And one of the benefits, I think, that I hope you will get, and one of the sort of secondary objectives of this campaign, is to build the skill level of the sector, so that we build in the sector the muscle and the muscle memory to campaign and to engage in politics to fix the problem that created the thing we're all here to fix, right? The other piece is donations. In some organizations, some individuals are able to give, whether it's $2, $5, $10, $100, or organizations that might be willing to contribute more. The more that we can raise, the more we can do. Zane talked about lawn signs, Zane, showed t-shirts, digital advertising, print material, translation, all of that costs money. And the base budget doesn't cover everything. It just makes sure that we have the infrastructure of a campaign that we can work with. So anything that people can do in that way would be helpful. And last point is, so give, volunteer, tell a friend, right? And the last part is tell a friend. Can you, as all 24,000 of you, if each of you reached out to 5 friends and brought 5 friends into the campaign, we would be successful, right? So this is where we really, really need you, and to build that campaign. And what we're hoping to come out of the campaign with is a capacity as a sector that will always be there, a standing capacity, a standing army, so to speak, who will always be there until we end homelessness, until we end housing need. And we have this capacity within the sector to engage in politics at a level that means we start putting our thumb on the scale of some of these important decisions. So with that, I'm going to just turn, there's a few questions here that I'd like to address. One, Mark has a question, I think we partially addressed it, about how we bring attention to Northeastern Ontario. That is a very good question, and I think, Mark, I know you to be a skilled organizer. So one of the things we can do is, if there are people in a community who would like to organize a campaign, to reach out to Zane. So, if you're in, you're in Northeastern Ontario, you're in Kenora, Thunder Bay, or you're in a smaller community in BC or Alberta, wherever, and you want to organize a campaign in your city or your riding or your region, reach out to us, and we're certainly going to be able to help you do that.
Can I add to that answer, Tim?
Sure.
I think that's such a great point, and a great question mark. And I think one of the things we want as we get to that phase one and launch that phase two very quickly here is what we'd call a do-it-yourself campaign, right? So wherever you are in this country, we want to provide a package of, we may not be able to be there with you, but if you've got the time and the capacity and the interest to do it, we can kind of give your own mini campaign in a can with the graphics and the toolkits. And even if you need some of us to help with some of the training, we can definitely assist however we can, but giving you the ability to take this brand, make it your own, own it in your own community, and we're able to help you how we can, but give you the levers to be that organizer or a set of organizers wherever you are in this country. So that's one of the ambitions we have on the organizing side, is to create that what I'd call do-it-yourself campaign that allows you to have a little bit more ownership of it as well.
Yeah, for sure. Stephen's got a question. He said, given Minister Hussein's comment about ending homelessness in the throne speech, how do we hold the government's feet to the fire? An equivalent investment of $9 billion would result in at least 100,000 units, which is still far short of the housing needed for the 235,000 people who are homeless each year. Stephen, you're absolutely right. And, building this next campaign as sort of the evolution, the next step of this campaign is building the capacity of the sector to engage in politics so that they have to listen to us. And I think the only way we hold government's feet to the fire is that they can show elections are won and lost on housing. And, they're able to, austerity agendas are only possible because they know they won't lose elections because of it, right? And so if the more voters we can move, the more people we can engage to vote housing, the more likely we are to get what we need to end homelessness in Canada and reverse the policy that created it. So thank you for that question. Another attendee is asking, if the City of London can eliminate veteran homelessness, cannot all homelessness be eliminated if municipalities make the effort? Short answer is absolutely yes. We believe so. We know that we're seeing communities making active reductions. I know Susan McGee from Homeward Trust is on the line here, and the city of Edmonton has reduced overall homelessness nearly 50% in the last 10 years. We know there's other communities that will be joining London very soon in ending chronic and veteran homelessness. We know it's possible. We just need to get government to be there in support. Robert makes a great suggestion. Should we have nonpartisan vote housing signs? So yes,
we will.
We'll have lawn signs for sure, but I'm sure there's all kinds of other things that we can put together. Again, we just got to figure out how to pay for them. In some other campaigns, people can have a lawn sign if they make a donation, or ask them to make a donation if they get a lawn sign. But we'll certainly figure that out. We also had an outdoor advertising firm donate billboards to Recovery for All, and we'll certainly be approaching them again. Another person's asking, is there a site we can download that vote housing poster? Short answer is yes. So we're going to make sure that everybody has access to this material. This is a do-it-yourself campaign in a lot of ways. And so we will have a way for campaigners to download the signs, the toolkits, the materials, the posters, the badges, the buttons, whatever you need. We'll make sure that folks have that. Ed is asking, did you consider adding a small peaked roof to the house on the logo? I guess it seems like a space for it. Yeah, we sort of got that in there, I think, and we just didn't put a chimney on, but I think we got the short sort of peaked roof. Believe me, we went through many iterations of that logo in many different colors. But yes. Tanya is asking, will the key messages be linked to the 6-point plan? So yes, we've just, we're working on a variation of the 6-point plan with our partners, and you'll see that shortly, but nothing in there will be a surprise. I'll just say it's very consistent with the 6-point plan. Right, another comment here. Wonderful vision and plan. Thank you for the thorough overview. Can you please explain how you envision the Vote Housing campaign to collaborate with the political campaigns of other organizations? Can political campaigns live functions separately, or do you see it only working effectively if integrated into Vote Housing campaigns? That is a terrific question. I'll say a couple of things and let Zane jump in, but we're looking at aligning ourselves with other campaigns that are out there. We know there'll be poverty-related campaigns, perhaps probably not other housing-related campaigns, but groups that are having campaigns that have an element of housing, or having campaigns that we can support. So we're going to be exploring opportunities for mutually reinforcing campaign activities, but maybe I'll let Zane jump in.
Once again, I would just say, great question. To expand on Tim's point a bit, that would also look at what we call our natural allies, those that maybe have a direct relationship to housing, but maybe those that don't either, to understand that there is an intersection when we look at certain issues. And if I can just maybe throw a few out on the table, whether it be BIPOC or racialized communities, a campaign about that and where housing could fit in, or if we're looking at more rights-based campaigns where housing can fit in. So we have the natural sort of alliances with those that might have housing related needs also explicitly or implicitly mentioned, but also trying to ensure that other organizations' advocacy campaigns, we can find a broad consensus, either help them or collaborate in some way. So we're always open to ideas, whether it's groups doing discrete work in areas we may not have heard of, or in parts of the country that we may not be familiar with of the work that they're doing, or national campaigns that come up that might find alignment in a slightly different manner. So all open to that for sure. The hope here, to be totally clear, is not to dominate the space and be the loudest and unsingular voice, but it is to say, how do we kind of be a player in the sandbox where our issue, we can kind of have a group of folks that speak strongly to it, but also bringing folks in from other patchwork elements of it, knowing that housing is quite fundamental in many ways to many of the other advocacy asks that are going to be out there as well.
Mm-hmm. One of the comments in the question Q&A is, should community buy-in involve sympathetic house builders or home builders? Absolutely. I think you bring together whatever coalition you can in the community that you're living. I know in my experience there's a lot of sympathetic and supportive home builders, private sector interests that have been aligned and supported. So absolutely, I think a local campaign could include that. Tanya's asking, what is the timeline for sunsetting RFA and launching Vote Housing? So Zane mentioned the 3 phases. We have the first phase, we're aiming to have a campaign in the can, so to speak, by the end of May. I think we'll probably launch the new Vote Housing campaign, let people know about it publicly in early June. We're in the soft launch phase, so starting probably next week, we're going to be reaching out to other partner organizations, those that might be able to contribute people or money or support in one form or another. One of the important things we have to do is reach out to everybody that participated in Recovery for All and get you to sign up to Vote Housing. Part of that is we want to make sure that we've got a lot of people signing the vote pledge. But the other part is, one of the keys here is our sharing of information between the partners to develop a pooled list. So for example, the Cooperative Housing Federation of Canada has got 250,000 members and people that own or live in co-ops. And those people will all be reaching out to, but we have to develop kind of a combined list. So we need to make sure everybody's consent is on that. So we're in the process of sunsetting RFA now. Should be done by the end of the month, but over the next few weeks, you're going to hear from us a lot about signing up to the Vote Pledge and seeing how you can be part of the new campaign aiming for a launch in early June.
Tim, before you go to the next question, do you mind if with a couple of minutes left, I just launched my poll question for volunteering. So I'm just going to launch this to folks. It's 2 questions. Would you be interested in volunteering on the Vote Housing campaign? Simply yes or no. And then the second question is, would you be interested in volunteering in any of these roles? So we've got a series of roles here, poll captains in your region, managing volunteers and leading teams, phone calling. If you can select all that apply, door knocking, digital organizing. So we've listed out a lot of these roles. Myself or someone from our campaign team will be in touch with you very shortly to see how we kind of use your help and support. So I'll leave that open as folks would fill that out. And Tim, you can kind of maybe go to the next question here while
Sure.
while everyone gets a chance to fill out this poll as well.
Okay. So while we're chit-chatting, you can fill out the poll. That would be great. Sorry, I'm just struggling with my screen here. Jennifer is asking, it's a broad question, but how do we tie the housing issue to the deadline on carbon emission reduction in Canada? Well, I think that would be, it's good to tie those 2 things together, but honestly, I want to get to an end to homelessness far faster, and we're going to get to a reduction in greenhouse gases. Their goals are 2050, I think, is where we're aiming. I think we want to be there and can be there much sooner, but certainly there's complementary opportunities. Also, let me see here. Star is saying, if 9 billion equals 100 million units, 100,000 units, is there any synergy to create 1 million units, or is that 9 billion times 10? Well, the campaign, as we're going through our sort of the platform pieces that we're putting together, I would say that we're going to be pushing for a minimum of 300,000 new units. Plus action on financialization, which is eroding the affordable housing stock in our country. We're also going to ask for 50,000 units of supportive housing. So that's roughly the scale that we're talking about. Certainly not out of the scope of opportunity. Canada in the early 80s could produce 25,000 a year. So we certainly able to do that. Alexandra is asking a really good question and said, I'd like to know if prejudice in low-income housing can be addressed so medical patients can also be in this project going forward. The answer is yes. One of the 6 points in this plan will be the same as the 6th point in the RFA, which is the progressive realization of the right to housing. So the right to housing is key in making sure that of addressing discrimination in housing, and that will be something that we'll be emphasizing. And that's also where we're going to talk about the importance of building equitable end to homelessness and responding and respecting to the needs of equity-seeking communities, and doing so in a manner that is consistent with what they're asking for and what they're driving. And I think just a couple of more questions here. Matthew is asking, will there be an intersection with safe water and housing for Indigenous communities? Good question, not directly, I don't think, but was something that we can explore. We are going to be focusing on the urban, rural, and northern Indigenous strategy. Many of the on-reserve housing, on-reserve water issues are addressed by the organizations like the AFN, the ITK, and the Métis Nation. But we would certainly explore opportunities to ally with them and support their work. Joe is asking, is Habitat for Humanity an organization we can relate to? Yes, we've had a conversation with Habitat, and we're hoping they'll be joining the campaign going forward. Last question here from Sylvia. how would the Canadian Alliance situate housing needs specific to Indigenous communities within this campaign? Well, again, you will see an urban Indigenous housing strategy will be a key plank of the campaign, and that's going to be a big focus of ours here as well. So I think we've gotten to all of the questions. I know there's some in the chat, but Zane, did you want to go through the poll?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to thank everyone for finishing their poll here. So I'll just end that, and what I'll say is I'll be in touch with everyone that responded to these poll questions. I noticed that someone said that you could only choose one on the second question, so apologies for that. But if you've chosen one, we'll kind of talk to you regardless and figure out your intent and get you signed up in an appropriate manner shortly. So do thank everyone for filling that out, and of course for giving your time on this Friday afternoon.
Right on. Well, we have a couple of questions if anybody, or a couple of minutes if anybody has any other questions at all. But while we give folks a minute to do that, I just wanted to say thank you all for everything that you've done over the last year. The pandemic has absolutely battered the homeless system, has been awful for many, for all of us, but especially awful for people who are experiencing homelessness and housing need. And you've really accomplished elevating that conversation and putting it on the national agenda in a way that it hasn't been done before. And some of the money that you helped, I'll say, liberate from the federal government went directly to responding to COVID and helping communities maintain their progress. So don't be under any illusions that what you've done in the last year is life-saving work, and it's absolutely critically important. And this is just the beginning. We're getting into a place now where I think, you know, that from now on, federal governments, federal political parties will not be able to ignore housing, will not be able to ignore ending homelessness. That we can ensure that people who have been homeless at some point in their life or who are homeless now start to have power in the halls of power in Canada. And once we build this campaigning infrastructure, we can then turn that on provinces and on municipalities and begin to address the full scope of policy that impacts homelessness. So thank you very much. We are just getting started. I encourage you to stay connected. You are going to hear from us again quite a bit in the near future. So thank you all very much. I think we will we'll wrap it right there, but we will be in touch again. If you want to get a hold of us, if you want to volunteer, please reach out to Zane at northweather.com, and ZAIN, Zane at northweather.com, and we will get this thing going. And with your help, an end to homelessness is not only possible, folks, it's within our reach. Thank you, Zane.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.